Hi everybody, sorry this is late. Like I noted in the email, I've been really busy with grading. Um, 310 had tons of assignments. It's a full class, and I've had a couple more 500 levels thrown at me, so I apologize. I just had to put this down at the lower end of the priority, so uh, hopefully it's helpful. I'm sorry I didn't get it to you before a couple of you made your number two decisions, but I'd be guarded about what I said anyway, and I think these will be helpful going forward to your number threes. So I'm going to stick with what I would have told you to do or would have suggested you do going from one to two. And if you didn't achieve the uh, results that you were hoping for, then maybe this will help explain why. So none of your names are attached to these, so only you know if I'm looking at your particular um, results here. So I start out by all of you did pretty well on your stock prices coming out of the chutes. It's the second one that's harder because, again, I think what I've told you all in conversations is that unless you really mess it up, there's some inertia that takes you from step one to step two. In most cases, if you do nothing, it's been my experience, and keep everything the same, that your stock price goes up, but gives the false impression that doing nothing is a good strategy, which it isn't. But in this particular case, this student has a 53 stock price, which is pretty good. I don't know exactly what the numbers are for the beginning of market share, but it's around 23 or 24. So the student held on to that, and in fact, their brand awareness went up, which tells me, suggests to me that this student probably, and we'll look at it in a second, emphasized um, advertising dollars. Only that really would affect your brand awareness. And their marketing efficiency is 2.59, which is very good. Again, that's a return on, not so much a return on sales efforts as it is on your promotional and advertising um, allocations or strategies. And the average discount's about the same. Unit sales, I forget what they were in the beginning for everybody. The other thing that I found by looking at all three of yours is that you all don't start out from the exact same numbers, which used to be the case. So some of you start out with more salespeople than others. Um, used to be 127, but there's a couple of them that start out in a different place. So what I see for this student, and I'm having a heck of a time because I'm recording actually seeing the numbers, so bear with me if I screw this up. That isn't going to make any difference. So I'll have to peek here, I'm sorry. So what I see is that they had a very, in the upper, well, going from left to right, I guess, and down. I'll just make a couple comments on each of them. There wasn't any change in salespeople. Um, we'll see if that shows up in this person's number two decision. And looking at these allocations in the upper right corner, remember that I told you that you want to try to key off of what interpretive, excuse me, I got the hiccups, what interpretive has told me, which is you want these allocations for your sales staff to average around 25. You might go higher to 27, 28 when you introduce a new product, but on average you want to stick to, as a target, to 25, around 45 for advertising, 10% for digital, and 20% for promotion. That gives you some focus or some targets to shoot for when you make your allocations. So before this person made their decisions, let's assume they had $60 million worth of advertising, which you want to spend regularly. 25% of 60 is 15, so you'd go 15 million, at least to kind of organize yourself. You can tweak it later, but that would imply 15 million toward sales, about 27 or so off the top of my head for advertising, 45% of 65, or 60 we said. 10% to digital, 10% of 60 would be 6, and then 20% of 60 would be 12. So that's kind of how you lay it out. But like I said, that gets you started. If you were going to introduce a new product, you might want to increase your sales staff slightly or not. You might want to tweak those numbers accordingly anyway to define a better strategy that would make sense for introducing a new product. This person apparently didn't make an important decision, an event that probably will hurt them in the next decision. What else can I see here? I can't read these down here. I can't see what the amounts are, but I think I said that, well, I can see this right here. If you're looking at the cursor, it's showing it. I'm on the right side, almost all the way down, second to the last item when it talks about messaging. And this product is in the later stage of the product life cycle because it's been around a while. So your message allocations would be consistent with what the PLC recommends. I refer you to the slides that I sent earlier, and it would suggest this is an intro in line item 1, so it should be like 5% for the first one, 15% for the next, then 40 and 40 because you're doing more comparing and reminding. And if you were introducing a brand new product, it would be just the opposite. It would be from top down 40, 40, 15, 5, and then in year 2 and 3, you would gradually move those numbers from what I just said for year 1, 5, 15, 40, 40. So in year 2, it might be 20, 25, something, something. By year 3, you're probably most of the way back to 5, 15, 40, 40. And certainly by year 4, after you've introduced it, your messaging would be informing, 5, driving to action, 15, comparing, 40, reminding, 40. So that suggests that these have a product life cycle of about 4 years, if I'm accurate in what I said. The final line item at the bottom for your promotional expenditures, I can't see what I'm looking at. I'm sorry, but for a product that has been around a while, you probably only want to have about a half of your budget for trials, which are samples, which makes sense for a product like this. And then coupons for something that's been around a while, probably 1.2 to 1.5. And those numbers would be modified, and I'll talk about that later, like this coming Sunday. They would be modified to higher levels in the first year for a brand new product. So you'd have a higher level of amount allocated to trials, like 3.5 or 4 is not uncommon, and coupons probably 2. And then in the second year of introduction, after initial introduction, probably lower those trials down to 2 and up the coupons, because you want people to reuse it. And then you'd be back to that initial trial and coupon for something that's been around a while of about a half for trials, 500,000 for trials, and 1.2 to 1.5 for coupons. This person weighted them really heavy, which probably accounts for the brand going up. So you got a bump in awareness, and you got a bump maybe even in unit sales. I'm not sure, because I didn't go back to look at year 1, or year 0 rather. But they could have spent less money where they did here for something that's been around a while, and throwing more dollars at hiring new salespeople. So this person has great brand awareness, so they probably kept their advertising dollars high too. Um, they held on to market share pretty well, and product satisfaction is about where it started, which is good. That's kind of what you want to do. You don't want to give up any territory there. Uh, Again, I think this person, as I recall, increased their sales staff by about 40, and uh, and I would recommend going into decision 2 that they increase it by another 30 to 40. Again, you want to adhere to those numbers. If you look to the direct right of sales staff going forward, they don't allocate. Previous. God, I can't read it. I'm sorry, but it looks like the number isn't too bad, although they are low on digital. So this is a matter of adhering to those average numbers that I talked about, and I don't know how you're all calculating them. So looking down here at the lower right-hand corner, I think they kind of suggested followed what I'd suggested in the initial Zoom, and modified their messaging. That should help them somewhat in their next decision. And then trial size, I can't again see what they are, but they should be exactly what I said for the last slide. And those are kind of the big things that jump out at me at this point early on in the decision. If we go back, it looks like we can't go back. So anyway, I can't. I don't remember what the price is, but I think, like Salesforce, you should be assertive. I was going to say aggressive, but certainly assertive on your pricing. This is not a schlock product, so you should have a pricing strategy over the short term, like you should have a Salesforce strategy. you have all these sub strategies to recognize or realize your overall objectives around revenues and unit sales. And so a strategy around pricing, what would make sense to me, if you're just going to stick with it, you're not going to do well. You can do what you want to do. I've said that all along. But if you don't increase your price to account for at least inflation, you will see your stock price start to not advance, either not advance, go down, or certainly not advance to the degree to meet um, your objectives over time around stock price. So one of the strategies, the easiest way to increase revenues is to increase the price. It's a matter of scope and scale always, but I would encourage you to have at least for the first 4 or 5 years to have a strategy that keeps up with inflation. And I can tell you from past experience that at least in the first 3 years or so, you can have something that stays ahead of inflation, and it'll probably reward you for that. So, increases of 3.5 to 4% in the first 3 years or so is fine because you have some pricing power, uh, as reflected in your level of satisfaction and brand awareness. So take advantage of that in your pricing. Yeah. This person did well too. Good start. Like the other ones, didn't give anything up. And it looks like I can't read the dang thing. Sorry. In recording mode, I can't increase the size of the screen, so I can't see exactly what I'm talking about here. But anyway, it's very similar to the other two. Nice start. And rather than go through this one in detail because I can't see it, it's the same thing. I should be looking at some increases in sales staff, and those should be carried forward into your number two decision, along with some increases, in my opinion, in price. Uh, all of those of you that emphasized advertising over, say, price increases and sales force increases, again, will likely see a stabilization or even decrease in stock price in subsequent years if you stick with that strategy, because advertising will only take you so far, in a product like this. If you don't have a good sales force, it's pushing it into other places, or you're not introducing new products and you're not explaining them properly or supporting them with an properly increased sales force, like we talked about in the initial Zoom, then it's going to show up in your performance. So I'm going to stop there. You guys can see these better than I can because you'll be able to increase your the screen size of each of these slides. I can't. So I will pick one at random. Nobody except the person who it belongs to will know it's theirs for a number two. And I'll do that later today or tomorrow. And I'll get those in time to um, have them be of value for decisions that you may want to make for number three. And we can talk about those, the results of number 3 and 4 if you like, if you go that far. But I don't think you have to, but it's up to you, on Sunday. All right, checking out.